Hello, welcome back to my channel. I am Amber from Amber's Books and More, and today I have my May wrap up. So actually I'm pretty proud of myself for May. I read most of the books that I wanted to read. I did change based on how I feel for a couple of them, so that's fine. But I managed to read a total of 13 books, which yay, it's really great. A couple of those are comics or graphic novels, but let's just go ahead and jump right in. So the first book that I read in May was The Fillin Boyfriend by Casey West. So this was a book that was picked for the Java and the Librarians book club, and also on the buddy read group, which I will leave both of the information for those down below, as well as the video for the live chat on the Fillin Boyfriend up above. I gave this 4 stars. I did enjoy it while I was reading it, and actually there's a spot where I actually had tears that hit the page, and I thought that that was really sweet. However, I do see that it's probably more of like a 3.5 because it did have some issues with like family and things, but overall I did enjoy the book. I'm not a huge contemporary fan, so for it to have made me feel feelings and everything, I think that it is pretty decent. Just don't go into this expecting a masterpiece because it's not that. But it was a cute book, so I gave this 4 stars on Goodreads. So the second book I read in the month of May was A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. This is the 3rd and final installment for the A Court of Thorns and Roses trilogy. Now she is going to be writing some companion novels that are set in the same world in Perithian, and it's going to follow different characters. So as far as Feyre and her point of view books, this is the very last one. I gave this 4 stars. I think that it was very good. I did enjoy it. I do have a Let's Talk Books for this one that I will leave linked up above. I did not enjoy it nearly as much as A Court of Mist and Fury. The second book, that one is still definitely my #1 favorite of the series, but I did enjoy it a lot more than the first book, A Court of Thorns and Roses. A lot of things weren't really tied up the way that I wanted them to be, and I felt like there weren't enough, she didn't go far enough with the war. I think that there were no real consequences, so I gave it a 4 stars, but only because I could not rate it lower than the first book, and I gave the first book 4 stars, which now I'd probably only give like a 3, but it was a good next part of the trilogy. I don't say end because it didn't. It ended, but it didn't end. Just read it. You'll understand what I mean. So the next book I read in the month of May was mostly because after A Court of Wings and Ruin, I think that I was so hyped about it that I kind of went through a small little book hangover, and I needed something A, quick and easy, and B, comforting. And there's nothing more comforting to me than Harry Potter. So I read the Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone illustrated edition. This thing is beautiful. Loved it. It's the same story. It's not been abridged. It's totally unabridged. But I mean, look at some of these pictures in here. It's just gorgeous. I love it so much, and I'm so happy that I read it. And I'm going to be reading the Chamber of Secrets illustrated edition for June, which you should already know because I've already put up my June TBR. I gave it 5 stars on Goodreads. It's the same story that I love, but it's added just another level. And I think that if you have kids that are young enough that they haven't read Harry Potter and maybe they're not quite ready yet, I think that once they are ready, since these are going to start coming out once a year, I think these illustrated editions would have been a beautiful way to first be introduced to the story. It's just wonderful. So I definitely gave this 5 stars on Goodreads. So the next book that I read in the month of May, I was in the mood for some poetry, so I read my Poems of the Irish People compilation book. It's got the silver edges. I bought this at Barnes & Noble on my mini haul, which I'll leave linked above. This was beautiful. It was split into 3 separate sections, so it was like the legends, the lore, and the people. I really loved the lore. It had a lot of really good poems about like leprechauns and fairies and stuff like that, that like all these different myths and legends that kind of go along with Ireland. And I think that it was really, really pretty, and I I'm going to start displaying this now that I've read it, because it is, I mean, it's just gorgeous. I love it so much. I gave this, I believe, 4 stars on Goodreads. I could be wrong, but I did enjoy reading this. Alright, so the next book I read in the month of May was one that I was also very hyped up about and very excited for, and that is Dead Men Walking by Sherilyn Kenyon. This is the first book of her new Dead Men's Cross series. So this did have a little bit of a crossover with the Dark Hunter series, but very, very minimal. It's mostly just said in passing, like, oh, Acheron and his Dark Hunters, and there's only one actual Dark Hunter character that shows up very briefly in this, so it was definitely its own series and its own, you know, and then, I mean, there is actually another character that's in some of the Dark Hunter books, but he's not a Dark Hunter, but it's beautiful and I love it, and this cover is just gorgeous. But naked, this thing is wonderful naked. So this is the most, oh, I just love it. It's just a beautiful color blue with purple, and it's got the symbol for the Dead Men's Cross, and it's got a really pretty map on the inside, and I believe there's one in the back too. But so this is about pirate. It's more of like pirate kind of story, but it's dead men pirates, and it kind of did give me a little bit of the Pirates of the Caribbean vibe, but a little more sexy and a little more adult, not as funny, you know. It did have some funny parts, but I believe I gave this also 4 stars on Goodreads. I really enjoyed it, and I'm excited to keep going on with this new series. And yeah, I mean, I have a new book boyfriend, just so you know. His name is Devil, and he is a tall, dark, and handsome pirate who not only enjoys reading, but he also reads to orphans. Oh, I'm melted. I love him. I love him. He's my new boo. So this is my new husband. None of you can have him. I'm sorry. He's mine. But if you want to read it, I'm willing to share him for a day or 2. But he's ultimately my husband. Okay? So after I finished reading Dead Men Walking, I was like, I just want something that is small and fast. I want to read something like in a day. So I don't know why, but I picked up 13 Reasons Why by Jay Asher. So I have been wanting to read this because it does have a Netflix series that's out, and this is a signed copy that I got from Book Outlet. And okay, I enjoyed it, but I didn't enjoy it at the same time. I had very mixed feelings about this book. And it's hard to really say what my mixed feelings were, but I believe I gave it 3 stars on Goodreads. And it's an okay fast read, but it does have quite a bit of problematic things in it, and I can't even completely remember what the problematic parts were. I've kind of blocked it out of my head. So check out my Goodreads review. I will leave the Goodreads link to all of these books down in the description bar. But yeah, this was just okay. So the next book I don't have the physical copy any longer because it was a part of a traveling book club, and I have already sent it back to Julie. It was she started it, so it went from her, and then there was 4 of us, and I was the last one. So then I finished it, wrote it up, and sent it back to Julie. So definitely check out her video whenever she posts it, where she does a flip through. I gave it 3 stars. I'm over here telling you what stars I give it. I haven't even told you what the book is yet. I'm so sorry. So it is How to Be Bad. I know it was like E. Lockhart, and there was 2 other girls that wrote it. I can't remember their names. I'll insert a picture of the cover. So this is definitely a fluffy contemporary. I didn't really enjoy it that much. There was 3 main characters. One of them I really actually kind of enjoyed, even though she was like the tropey bad girl with problems. The other one was kind of a tropey rich girl that has family issues. She was okay. I kind of liked her. But then there was the third one who was like this religious shove your stuff down my I mean, just I didn't care for her at all. And in fact, there's a spot in the book where I said I wanted to throat punch her. So definitely check out Julie's flip through and see some of the comments I made during the book. I know I wrote ugh a few times, and the amount of eye rolling here is crazy. I wrote some other things, but go ahead and check that out once it comes out. Once it comes out, I will link it down below, but I know she hasn't put it out yet. But I gave that 3 stars on Goodreads. Alright, so the next book I read, I actually read it, or listened to it on audiobook, but there were times when I would be home and I would follow along with the actual book, and I really enjoyed it, and I'm so proud of myself because it was an intimidating book. And that is Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. This book is first of all, it's one of the smallest ones in the Fire and Ice series because this is the first book, and it still was over 800 pages. And I'm so excited that I finished it, and it was such a good story. And there is a death in here that broke me, and I even messaged Julie over pages of pens, and I was like, oh my god, I can't believe he died. But it's really good. And now that I've read the first book, I've moved on to the second book. That's in my June TBR, which I've already posted. But I am going to watch the first season of Game of Thrones now, since this kind of follows the first season. And I'm so proud of myself for finishing this. This is high fantasy, really like scares me and intimidates me. But I'm just so proud of myself for actually getting through this thing. And 5 stars on Goodreads. I loved it. Read this if you have not read it. The audiobook is awesome. The narrator, he does such a good job, and the way that he makes the character voices, especially for Tyrion Lannister, which is the dwarf, the midget, is so funny. I love it so much. But definitely check this out. 5 stars on Goodreads. So the next book I read effed with my head. It messed me up so badly, and I can't even tell you why it messed me up because spoilers. But this was Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. It's not even long. It's pretty short, and it's not even 300 pages, I don't think. I think it's like right at 300 pages. I read this in a day and a half, I think, and it messed with my head so badly. This is a concept in this book that scares me. It fascinates me. And I love it. I don't know. But it was such a good book. I gave this 5 stars on Goodreads. I cannot recommend this thing enough for people that like to think and like things that make them look at the world a different way. Because this definitely did that. It is so good. Oh my gosh. So the next book I read in the month of May was one of the challenges that I gave myself, and whoop whoop, I finished my challenge. It was Fantasy Lover by Sherilyn Kenyon, the first book kind of the Dark Hunter series. I'm trying to do a reread of these, one every month. My June TBR is pretty full, and I didn't fit the second book, the next book in this in anywhere, so we'll see if I actually read it. I think I gave this 4 stars. It was just as good as I remember it, but it's very sexual, because like even the main character is like a sex therapist, but it was pretty good. I mean, it was short, and the thing with the Dark Hunter series is each book itself doesn't have a lot of development into the world. It kind of is a slow burn, and each book builds a little bit onto the world at a time, so that by the time you get to like the 20th book, you got this huge universe. But it's definitely good. But if you like quick, easy, sexy time, this one has no kind of vampires. This is about Greek gods more. Check it out. So the next book I read in May, I'm looking at my list of books, and I've got 1, 2, 3 books left, and I'm realizing I did not rate anything under 3 stars. I had a really good reading month. But the next book I read was The Coldest Girl in Cold Town by Holly Black. This one is about vampires, and it's kind of a mix to me between like if you took Anne Rice's Vampire Chronicles and you kind of took the Sookie Stackhouse vampires and you kind of connected them and then put them in like a post-apocalyptic kind of thing. That's what this is. I really enjoyed this. I believe I gave this 4 stars on Goodreads. I think it was 4 stars. The concept was really cool, and it was really well written, and I read this in one sitting, and it's got over 400 pages, and I read it in one day. I just read like all day, and I loved it. And it was funny because Goodreads posted one of those things on Twitter that said like, if you were pushed into the setting of any book that you're reading now, where would you be? And it was Cold Town, and I was like, I don't want to be there. No, I don't want to be there. That's not a fun place. But this was a really good book. I'm kind of sad that there's not a sequel to it because I kind of wanted more, which is why I gave it 4 stars. But I really, really, really like this. So if you enjoy vampires, but you enjoy like a real vampires, not sparkly. If you enjoyed Anne Rice's and you enjoyed Sookie Stackhouse, you'll probably enjoy this. It's definitely a good read. So the next 2 books I read were the last day of the month, and they were both comics or graphic novels. So for the first one, I read it on ebook through my library, and I don't have a copy of it, but it was the Lumberjanes Comics Volume 2, and just like the first one, it was so cute. It was so badass. These girls are awesome. Supernatural creatures. They brought Greek mythology into this one. I gave it 4 stars, I believe, on Goodreads. I really enjoyed it. And if you have like a 12-year-old girl, she needs to read these because they're so good. They have them at the library. I mean, just do it. They're very good. The last and final book that I read in the month of May was one that you're all gonna tell me, I told you so. I told you you'd like it. I told you it was awesome, and I don't know why I waited so long to read it. Now, I'm going to show you the book I have in my hand, but it's not the actual book that I read. So I read Saga Volume 1. This is not Volume 1. This is Volume 4. So after I read Volume 1 through my library, through the Hoopla app, I downloaded Volume 2, but Volume 2 I finished on the 1st of June, so that's going to go toward June. So then when I went to the actual library, they had Volume 4 and Volume 7 actually physically, and so I'm going to, when I get to Volume 4, read this one, and then when I get to Volume 7, read that one, because I like the physical books. And I mean, these these drawings are so beautiful, and like I love, for some reason, that there's so many crazy characters. Like there's people with people bodies but like TVs for heads, and it's just, they're funny and they're awesome, and I gave it 5 stars. I love them so far. I haven't started Volume 3, but I do plan to get into that tonight. But definitely check out the Saga series. It's awesome. It's awesome. If you have a library card, maybe check out Hoopla. They have a lot of them in my library on Hoopla, actually all of them. And they're definitely worth reading. They're quick reads and they're so good. Alright, so that's all I have for you. That's all 12, 13, 11? I don't know, however many books I said that I read. I'm tired now from talking about all these books. So I've decided that I'm going to take a bit of a different path on book reviews, because a lot of these books, like, I don't really have a ton to say about them, but there's sometimes that I can't really say much about them when I have 12 or so of them to talk about in one video. So what I think that I'm going to do is not comics or graphic novels or manga. I'm not going to add those in. But every time I read 5 books, I'm going to have a mini review video. So I'll do it mini review number 1 and then keep going. So every 5 books, I'm going to do a mini review video, so that if there's 5 books in there that I don't really have much to say about, it'll be a 5-minute video. If there's 5 books and maybe 2 of them I really want to talk about, I have a little bit of, space and not have to fit so many into one video. I'll still do wrap-ups just to say what I read, but then any of them that have been in the mini reviews I will link, that kind of thing. So I'm really excited. So especially with Emoji-a-thon going on, I have like big hopes and dreams for this month, and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, so I'm also going to film tomorrow. I'm going to film a haul revisit. So I'm going to start, I've only had 4 hauls on this channel, so I'm going to start with the first haul, and I'm going to do a revisit, and I'm going to do that. I got that idea from Julie. I think that's a great idea, to see like kind of what you're buying versus what you're reading. But yeah, so, and also if you guys watched my car vlog, and I'm sorry if you did because it was unedited and I was like rambling, But basically what I said in that video was that I feel like I don't have much to say, and that's why I really haven't wanted to film. So if you guys have any ideas of videos that you think that I would do well or that would be fun for me, including any tags, I definitely plan on filming the drunk book tag soon. I just haven't gotten around to it, but I do want to film that very soon so that I can get that one, because that one looks like that one is a lot of fun. I know it is. But any other like tags you've seen that you think that you would like to have fun with me, definitely leave me a comment down below. But that's all I have for you today. So until next time, have a great day wherever you are, and I love you. Bye.